Oh baby, what do basic balconies and blank rooms have in common? They're all gonna get fixed on today's design drama. Welcome back to Laugh Cry DIY. I am your host, Katie, and from time to time on this channel, I love to ask my subscribers to send in their most problematic rooms, their most frustrating decor dilemmas, so that I can fix them in a series I call Design Drama. And in this episode, I'm gonna help two subscribers fix the problems that have been nagging their lives and keeping them up at night. So let's dive in to problema numero uno. This subscriber, who would like to remain anonymous, and therefore we will call them Beyonce, is having a very simple but common problem, which is that they have this balcony, which is totally exposed and has no privacy. People across and people above can see into this balcony, so they just don't feel like hanging out there. And it's a shame because if you're lucky enough to have a balcony, you should be able to enjoy it. So they wanted to design something for the balcony that would make it feel both private, but also not entirely closed off. And normally they might hang curtains, but they're a renter and so they can't drill into the balcony. And even if they could, many balconies are made out of cement, so it's a huge pain in the ass to even try to deal with it. But for this subscriber, they've already done a great job of styling their balcony with this cute flooring and the plants and the bench, and I want them to be able to enjoy it, and therefore I do have a few suggestions. Number one, you mentioned wanting to do curtains, and those are actually not out of the realm of possibility with this really cool tension rod curtain system. This is a brilliant hack because there's no drilling, there's no sticking things or trying to like finagle stuff. Now, in a recent video, I had also talked about my love of canopy beds and renter-friendly versions of those, and I can't believe that I did not realize that this kind of system exists. It's a super simple system, and you can have the curtains of your dreams. So that is one great solution. Or you could also try one of my other favorite decor hacks, which I talk about in many episodes, and that is using screens to partition off the balcony. And there are several versions of screens that you might want to consider depending on your style or taste or needs or even potentially weather situations. So the first style is something that is like metalwork, like this style of IKEA screen. It has enough detail that it obstructs your view, but it still allows light to pass through, so it doesn't feel quite so closed off. But if you wanted more privacy, you could go with this slatted wood version, which is also from IKEA. And by the way, I will be linking everything I'm talking about below for you to check out. I like this because it also requires no drilling. You could either set them up freestanding or you could zip tie them to the existing balcony rails, which would be a super easy thing to do. Again, you want to consider your own aesthetic and needs and how much privacy you're really looking for. I also love this type of carved wood pattern, which is so pretty and also lets light through. I'm also a huge fan of something like a rattan screen, which can be totally blocked or might have a pattern that gives you some partial visibility. Sometimes with balconies, you really don't want to block off any light, especially if that's kind of the only light that gets into your living room. So another cool thing you could do to preserve the light is to use a standing acrylic screen and do a little DIY hack where you actually add this privacy film to it, which is printed to look like reeded glass. This is cool because it adds a little bit of faux texture and it lets all the light pass through without having invasive eyes in your space. So there you go, you got a few options. And if you do implement one of these, please send me a picture because I love to creep on people's balconies. All right, moving on to design drama number 2. We have a bedroom challenge. This one comes to us from my subscriber, Christina, who moved from a studio apartment into a 1-bedroom apartment, and now she has a bedroom with walls, and now she doesn't really know what to do with it. And as someone who lived in studios for many years, I also understand the excitement of growing into a new space and kind of being stuck with a blank canvas. Now let's start with Christina's style. She has a diverse, eclectic taste. She likes industrial design, she likes mid-century modern. She's also a millennial who kind of low-key loves 80s, 90s Lisa Frank style. She loves jewel tones and pastels. She loves neon and she loves things that kind of speak to her playful inner child. So she does love a little bit of whimsy, which you can already see with things like her large stuffed goose, which I love and think is so fun, as well as things like a cheetah lamp and a zebra print vase and this little evil eye rug that she has. Most importantly, she wants the room to feel like fun and lighthearted and peaceful, but also a little playful. She definitely wants to add some mood lighting because she does not like that overhead fan light. She also used to have a pallet table at the end of her bed, which gave her some storage, so she would like more storage if possible. And we have some kind of guardrails for our design. Management doesn't allow any peel and stick wallpaper or flooring. She doesn't want to paint. She's neurodivergent, which will influence some of our design choices. And she does have a senior dog named Billy that kind of struggles to get up on the bed. So we have a lot of things to keep in mind. And Christina did share some pictures of her old studio apartment to get a little bit of a sense of how she was putting things together. And in looking at these photos to get a sense of her style, a few things did stand out to me. Number one, she is a maximalist in that she has a lot of things and she has a lot of open storage. This is very common if you're dealing with like neurodivergence, where there's the idea of object permanence, which is basically if you can't see an object, you kind of forget it exists. So sometimes people like to have a lot of objects on display so that they can see everything they have. I also noticed there's not a ton of color or pattern. And that makes sense because for some people, a lot of pattern is really overstimulating and it's too much. So that's something I'm gonna keep in mind. But the biggest thing that stood out to me in these photos is how many plants she has. And clearly plants are something she loves and is connected to. And for anybody, adding plants to a space makes a room feel more peaceful instantly. And in fact, a 2016 study from the Netherlands showed that even looking at images of greenery will help you reduce stress. So that's something to keep in mind, even if you don't have a super light-filled apartment. Even faux plants can help you feel less stressed. So all in all, we have a bit of a tricky assignment ahead of us. We want to make the room functional and playful and peaceful. We want to work within our guardrails, and we want to try to incorporate a few styles being industrial, MCM, and Lisa Frank 80s, 90s design. So how are we going to do it all? Now first, because this is Laugh Cry DIY, and we love colorful maximalism, and Christina said the two best words on earth, which are Lisa Frank, I do want to make more of an effort to infuse that kind of poppy playfulness in ways that I think Christina may have not pushed herself to explore before. But we're not going to go nuts, and we're going to do it in a little more of a restrained way because we actually have a few limitations. What I'm really saying is, Christina, don't be scared. Now, before we dive in, I do want to talk about the challenge of mixing a lot of different design styles, especially when they may seem very disparate. So the way I approach that is to look at the different styles and look at what they actually have in common. So for example, let's start with industrial design. Industrial design is all about raw materials, metals, woods, elements in their kind of basic natural state. It tends to be more minimal. There's not a lot of pattern or color, but there is texture. Now, when we talk about mid-century modern, we have a lot of similar, clean, slick, minimal lines, as well as materials like wood and metal. And when we talk about that sort of 80s, 90s design, we're talking Miami deco, we're talking postmodern, we're talking Memphis design. And that's all about a lot of geometric shapes, kind of exaggerated silhouettes, and more bold colors. But what all three have in common, I would say, are these kind of minimal, clean geometric lines. So that is something I'm gonna lean into and then incorporate little elements here and there. So let's start by blanking out the room with everything we're gonna keep. And that is the dresser, the bed, and the little rug. Now let's start with the color palette. As Christina said, she likes pastels and jewel tones, and I looked at all her old apartment pictures, and I noticed that she really likes this teal blue, as well as this really pretty blush pink, and this pastel blue. And I think that those are really nice, soft, soothing, peaceful colors for a bedroom. But like I said, I do want to push Christina to turn up the volume just a little bit with a few Lisa Frank inspired colors. So I'm also going to add in this hot pink as well as this pretty yellow mustard. We're not going to go nuts with these, but because we're not really playing with pattern, I do want to add something that gives a little bit more of a visual interest and that really fun, playful pop. Again, don't be scared. As I mentioned, we are keeping the bed frame, and this was something that Christina was kind of neutral about, but I'm gonna keep it for a few reasons. Number one, it is metal and it is very industrial. Number two, it is black, and we do have some black and white in the room, so we wanna keep that base. And number three, she really wanted to incorporate mood lighting. And one of the coolest ways to do that is to use this neon LED rope to backlight your furniture like this. And because she has that existing frame, it's very easy to run that rope along the back of it and give you a nice, pretty glow. One note, I do suggest this type of neon rope as opposed to LED strips, which tend to have a bunch of little bulbs, which gives you a little bit more of an inconsistent light. If you do the rope strips, it's really nice, continuous, soft, diffused light. You could also run this around the back of your dresser or any other furniture you wanted, and it just gives you that gorgeous, moody glow, so you don't have to use the overhead light. Oh, also these rope lights are color changing, so if you want to do that and go full Lisa Frank neon hot pink, be my guest. So step one, add these rope lights to the back of your bed frame. And here's a lame Photoshop image of that glow because actually doing the glow effect takes time. Anyways, next we're gonna talk about the rug. Christina wanted a very peaceful, calm, cozy room. She likes those pastel colors. So I'm gonna add this really pretty washable pink shag rug from Ruggable. This adds soft texture, it's super cozy, it feels really luxe, it's cool that it's washable. And because we can't add color to the walls, I wanna add a soft wash of this blush pink to as much of the room as we can. And rugs are a good way to do that. I also love that this type of shag rug, it reminds me of the fuzzy kind of scrunchies or pencil toppers that we used to have in the 90s. So to me, it really speaks to my inner millennial girl. Now, next up, we're gonna add our end tables. But as I mentioned before, one thing I noticed is that Christina wanted more storage. In her last place, she liked a lot of open storage. So we are gonna add storage and scale by not just adding end tables, but by adding these tall bookshelf end tables. These are mid-century inspired, so we're bringing in that nice, cozy, warm wood that is very industrial and mid-century. We're adding height to fill up those blank walls. And doing these bookshelves on either side of the bed makes you feel kind of really cozy and sort of nooked in, if that makes sense. Now, to fill these shelves, Christina has a ton of like personal items and treasures that she likes, and I think it's great to bring in anything that makes you feel happy and comforted and joyful in your bedroom. And as I mentioned, she has a ton of plants. So I'm gonna fill these with all of that. And honestly, I think the more plants, the better. In bedrooms, I also like when people do a plant shelf above the bed, but I think that this achieves it in a really form and function way. And now it's time to introduce some of that playful Lisa Frank inspired color palette with these hot pink velvet Euroshams. These are oversized channel tufted velvet pillows, which I'm adding for that soft, cozy texture. I like how this color really pops against the teal. And again, I just love anything fuzzy, sorry. And one note about mixing colors in a space. I think a lot of times when people think of their color palette, they think that they have to use the exact shade of that color over and over, but you can play with the saturation of that color. So for example, this hot pink is actually just a darker, more saturated version of the blush pink. And the more you play with those saturations throughout the space, the more dynamic it can feel. Now I know that can be a lot and in your face, so I am gonna soften it a bit with these softer blue pillows, as well as this Lisa Frank inspired lumbar pillow, which features a tiger in sunglasses blowing a bubblegum bubble. I love this, and I just felt like it was a fun, whimsical nod to Lisa Frank. Okay. Now again, I do want to keep adding things to soften the room because this is a bedroom. So I'm also going to add this simple soft blue Roman shade. Again, this is another way to get color on the wall when you can't paint. And I feel like any kind of sea of blues is also always really peaceful and soothing. But I'm not done adding fun little pops of color. And we're also going to mix up the materials by adding these yellow metallic mid-century inspired nightstand lamps. Metallic texture mixes things up. It feels a little more industrial. The silhouette here is super mid-century, but it also speaks to those like 80s Miami deco curves. And yellow is such an underused color that feels really bright and cheerful and playful. And I think it also works really well when you have greenery around. And I'm gonna complement those yellow lamps by adding this cute, petite, curved storage ottoman. And this is to serve a few purposes. One, it's a little extra storage. Number two, it's actually corduroy material, which helps add in some more texture. Number three, the curved silhouette really speaks to that 80s Miami deco vibe. And most importantly, this storage ottoman is kind of petite and lower because I want it to serve as either a bridge for her senior dog to be able to get onto the bed, or as a smaller, more comfy perch if he wants to hang out at the foot of the bed. Now next, I'm not forgetting about Christina's request for neon lighting beyond the neon rope lighting that's meant to be more mood lighting. She mentioned that she has a few neon pieces and a few more in her online shopping cart. So I'm also gonna add this statement neon to the wall. And I don't know what pieces Christina has, but of course I had to choose the cat with a knife in its mouth. Now, although I love neon pieces, sometimes they can feel kind of just like stuck up on the wall. So I think Christina should also take an empty frame and frame the neon piece just to make it feel like a little bit more of an intentional piece of art. You could also paint that frame a fun color or coordinating color with the neon just to add a little bit more personality, but do what you want. Lastly, we're gonna add a few more pieces for some actual function. I'm gonna add this fun hot pink mirror above the dresser. Again, it's just a fun, playful silhouette. And for more fun, functional storage, I saw these cute, colorful hooks on Etsy, which are great to add things like hats or purses or other things she wants to have out and handy. So there you go. There is your eclectic MCM industrial Lisa Frank inspired design. So I hope this gave you some fun inspiration, some cool ideas. Thank you guys for submitting your spaces. And if this is your first time watching my channel, I will link my playlist of other design dramas I've done below. I also have a newsletter where I send out monthly roundups of DIY and decor inspiration. You can sign up for that below. You can also check the links below for all the products I mentioned today. So per usual, thank you guys for watching, and thank you for sending me your drama because you know I freaking love it.